can't ask those kinds of questions without itself being evil because science is limited. I'm pro-science. The church is pro-science. Christianity has been pro-science. But we understand it's limited, even finally, because it cannot answer one simple question that we think it does. Science can't answer why. It only answers how. Do you realize that? When you're watching, how many guys Planet Earth fans? Anybody out here? I love Planet Earth. It's a great show. If you ever watch it, it's amazing. And you always watch the David Attenborough version, right? Because he's sitting there talking like this the entire time, and he's telling you why all the animals love to do things. This animal is, and you know what's funny? You don't realize it. He doesn't know why the animals are doing any of that stuff. You watch your National Geographic, they don't know why the animals are doing it. Did they go down and interview it? So, sir, why, Mr. Monkey, why are you throwing your poo today? You know, it's like he's not asking that question. He's like, ah! And it's like, oh, see, you get some dominance in the cage. No. That's human invention. Science doesn't answer why, it only answers how. It can speculate on the why, but it cannot answer why, it only answers how. And so when we see this, it dives into the fact that you can't know why you were made. It can't answer that. And so we teach a generation of people that, look, you're this evolved, transformed, amoeba into this, kind of tree of life, and now you're some kind of lemur kind of thing that moved into the great apes, that moved into, all that stuff that they talk about in the great tree of life. And it's like, the conclusion is, I don't have a meaning. Because meaning is invented by me, or meaning is made up by individuals, and meaning is just whatever you want to make of it, yet that's not the case. If you actually dive into the background and look at science and look at what's going on, we would discover very quickly that God did give you meaning. God gave you a purpose. God gives meaning because he's a designer. And if you're thinking, there is no designer, let's stop and think about it for a minute. Like, there's so much design that it's pulled over your eyes because they give it to you piecemeal. Whether you believe in macroevolution or not, or whatever your position is, stop here and think about it for 1 minute. We start off with just the quarks. And the quarks are designed in such a way that they fit together into what we know as a nucleus with an electron floating around. That's called an atom. And an atom actually shifts together and pulls together into these various elements. The elements move together into molecules. The molecules move together into all of these complex devices. Let's just go with one of them called a protein. Suddenly you have a protein. These proteins are encoded together with DNA. DNA fits together into and pulls proteins together that are folded into organelles. Organelles become this whole entire system called a cell. Now, that system of a cell is combined by a bunch of other cells, all connected by sugar phosphate codes that pull those things together and become something like you and I would know as an organ, a heart. Well, the heart is only a piece of the pumping mechanism that involves your entire circulatory system that's already connected to your nervous system. It's involving your very respiratory system. It needs food from your digestive system, so it goes to your musculatory system, your skeletal system, all built together so that you can stand upright and be able to communicate in a social system of family and others and have dialogue and engage, along with being supported by an ecosystem that gives you the food and the air and all the stuff that you breathe on a landscape that we know as a continent, with an entire system that pulls the planetary system together so that we can have an environment and a weather and a climate that is sitting in the middle of a solar system that surrounds a sun that's tilted at a certain angle so you can have all the things that we love, and that is sitting in a gravity well in the midst of a giant galaxy. And that galaxy actually sits consisting in several other called a local group that is pulled together, we think, by a giant string of gravity that pulls the whole universe together. That's pretty well designed. That's fun, but I want you to stop and just take it in for a second. You're not talking about how did that small little thing change over billions. How did all of that come together? It's designed at a magnitude that's ridiculous and hard for the mind to grasp. That's why we take it piecemeal. And so I don't want us to sit here and be afraid of these things. I want you to take it in, because what's going on here is in the midst of all of that design, you don't look to the universe and stuff to give you the answer. You look to the designer. And again, I go back to Genesis chapter 1. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created male and female, he created them. And God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, or enculturate it, make culture out of it, have dominion, or rule carefully and kindly. These aren't dominant, mean words. We read them that way. This is before sin. And have this dominion, have this rule over the fish of the sea, the birds, the heavens, over every living thing that moves on the earth. Do you know how you get to know how to care for animals correctly and how to care for the earth correctly and to do all the things that we're told to do here? It's called science. So part of the purpose of your existence on this earth is to engage in this earth in some scientific level. You're made in God's image. Your purpose is to represent God and to treat this world in a beautiful way, and that requires science. We're not against science. We're very pro-science. We just know it's limited. It can't give us purpose, but God already has. In fact, I'm pro-science because when you put it all together like that, it's very clear Christianity is pro-science because it affirms God's existence over and over and over again. You want more of this? Go back to our series we did a few years ago called God Hypothesis Online. You can go through that whole process and take a look at that stuff. Obviously, I enjoy this kind of thing, but I really, really want you to hear, if you know someone who's anti-science or you yourself believe you don't need to examine Christianity because you think we're anti-science, press pause on it for a second. And realize, yes, the church is pro-science. In fact, we believe that it shows off God in this thing that we call general revelation. It's something pastors don't talk a lot about because it's theological, but God does reveal himself. And we believe he reveals himself in three kinds of revelation. It's general, which is for everybody in creation, and then specific, which is, or special, which is in the Bible, and then personal through the very Spirit of God. Now, what we're going to look at here is this concept of general revelation in Romans chapter 1. So if you got your Bible, open it up. And what I'm going to show you is an age-old argument which comes from before the scientific revolution, which came from people who were way more engaged in nature than we are today, and probably were a lot smarter than us. We all think we're real smart because we can use the cell phones and stuff. Man, I didn't build the cell phone, I just know how to use it, right? These guys are geniuses in their observation of the world, and they examine it. In Romans chapter 1, Paul is talking about the reality that all humanity has an opportunity to know God. It says, verse 19, for what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power or his infinite ability, however you want to translate that, and divine nature or what he's really like, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. Now think about that. He's saying you look at the world around you and what you will find are the attributes of God somewhere involved in them. You're going to run into this beauty of who God is. And the reason you're going to run into this is because, to be quite honest, God made it that way to show himself off. It's as simple as looking at the atomics of the atoms of the entire universe. And when you realize that when you split an atom, is there a lot of power in there? I think we should all say yes in the nuclear age at this point, right? I mean, there's incredible amounts of power found in the nuclear forces. And when we split the atom, it's blown up cities and things like this. It's incredible. However, there is a weird thing that we have that science doesn't. It's called cause and effect. This is a philosophical concept. It's used in science, but cause and effect is important. I want you to think about this for a minute. Why would all that show anything about God? Well, imagine with me that you walked in this room and I'm holding these two cups, and this one's filled fully with water and this one's empty. And I say, oh, look, you notice there's nothing to fill my cup up with in here. There's nothing else. Now, this isn't full because I don't want to make a mess. But imagine with me, I said, I filled just with one glass of this mug, this entire thing to the top. Would you believe me? No. Now, if I did it, you'd be like, whoa, cool magic trick. Why would we think that it's a magic trick except for the fact that we know that the cause of an effect has to be equal or greater? I need a bigger jug. This can fill this. And we're like, well, that doesn't surprise me at all. The cause always has to be greater than or equal to its effect. And when we say something like, hey, this universe has incredible amounts of power just found in this atomic structure, and we go, okay, if there's a God, then that would point you back to something greater or more powerful should have created it. But what's our argument today? Oh, nothing. Nothing created it. That's the wrong direction in logic. I actually want to argue that Christians, you have a better logical reasoning to believe in science. You have a greater cause. That cause is called the all-powerful one, who's namely God. God creates and is powerful enough to create a universe this large with this much energy and this much power. Hey, thanks for watching. And if you enjoy the content that you're seeing, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that church bell there at the bottom so that you can get notified when new content appears, when we have a live service that's going on. And if you like the messages and you want to go further, we have a podcast called The Rabbit Trail, in which we pick up things we didn't discuss in the sermon, or we follow the questions of people wherever those rabbits lead us. And so if you're interested in that, down in the description is a link and you can join us right there.